नमस्कार, मैं हूं अशोक वर्मा। आप देख रहे हैं टीवी 20 न्यूज। टीवी 20 न्यूज पर देश और प्रदेश की तमाम खबरें देखने के लिए बने रहिए हमारे साथ।
And so now to our next award recipient. We've been giving out awards for a number of years now, but we've not ever presented an award to the community at large. It's always been for the contributions from individuals. But this year, for the first time, we are presenting an award for community service. And so the King Legacy Award for civic engagement and community impact is being presented to the Scotland AME Zion Church Second Century Project. And to present that award is our General Chair of our Martin Luther King International Salute, our General Chair, Frank Islam.
Can you hear me, guys? Good morning, and my name is Frank Islam. Thank you, Madeline, and you do a wonderful job. We appreciate everything you're doing for us. Thank you. It is truly a privilege to introduce the Scotland African American Methodist, and also known as AME Zion Church Second Century Project. I cannot read it. Located in Potomac, Maryland, to receive the Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Award for civic engagement and community impact. As a citizen of Potomac, I can tell you that the Scotland AME Church Second Century Project is an outstanding choice to receive this award. Let me tell you why. The Scotland AME Church was established 1 century ago on September 16, 1924, in a community which the emancipated slaves which had moved their own and called Scotland. It's clearly 100 years that the Scotland Church was the center of the community life. It was the epicenter for the civil rights movement in the Montgomery County, Maryland, in the 1960s, and focused on education, history, and interfaith engagement in the decades to follow. Tragically, in July 2019, the Scotland Church flooded, and the practitioner of the Scotland did not have the money to the permits, hire the engineers, retain the contractors. It would take two for a building that had actually been built by hand. Without the church, it appeared there would be no community. But the people of Scotland would not let their community disappear. In 2022, under the leadership of the Reverend Dr. Evelyn Huggins, they launched the Second Century Project to keep the church and the community in place to another 100 years. Backed by the generosity of my friend Mitch and Emily Rales, as well as the government leaders at the state and the county level, people like Councilperson Andrew Friedson. Can you stand up, Andrew? And the county executive, Mark Elridge, the Second Century Project has brought together the community in a common cause. The Second Century Project has launched thousands of people through means and Scotland in Heritage Festival, media engagement, and visits to the dozen of other congregations. To date, the project has raised more than $6 million of a $10 million project. Reconstruction and expansion of the Scotland Church is already underway. in an area, in a time when the churches, especially black churches, are closing in the several numbers, the Second Century Project plans to open the Scotland African Methodist Zion Church by the end of this year. This is the story of the Scotland AME Zion since Second Century Project. It is a remarkable one, and that is why we are here this morning to organize and recognize and give the Scotland Church Second Century Project the Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Award for Civic Engagement and Community Impact. In closing, let me leave you with these words from Dr. Martin Luther King himself, which reflects the importance of this collaborative endeavor. Dr. King said, and I quote, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality led in a single garment of destiny. And whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." To all of you in the collaborative endeavor in Potomac, Maryland, I say thank you very much for coming together in the network of mutuality and single garment of destiny to shape the community of Scotland and Potomac for the next 100 years. Now, on behalf of the MLK International Salute Committee, I'm proud to present the Scotland Second Century Project, the King Legacy Award for Civic Engagement and Community Impact, working to keep the dreams alive, commitment, leadership, and service. Catherine Leggett, is she going to be here? She will get the award, and also she will say a few words.
It is a wonderful privilege to be here today as the honorary co-chair representing the Second Century Project for the historic community of Scotland in Potomac, Maryland. Yes, I do have laryngitis, and please bear with me. I am not contagious. I took a flu test and a COVID test before coming here this morning, but it was so important for me to be here to accept this award and to represent the Scotland community that I'm here. And it is truly incredible what has been accomplished in less than just 2 years. But the Scotland story began 400 years earlier when Scottish immigrants purchased enslaved people from Africa and put them to work on the Maryland plantation. The Scotland story continued after the Civil War, when members of the Dove family became the first freed slaves to own land in Potomac. The land was hilly and bony, but not farmable unless you had great skills. So it wasn't the kind of land that white settlers wanted. But after the Doves and the Mason brothers came, then the Coopers and the Simmons, and so many more. In 1915, a former slave named Sarah Sims gave up some of her land for a little church, and I mean a little church. To the community of Scotland, however, that building, celebrating its 100th anniversary in 2024, has always been larger than life. That church, in fact, have been life itself. The Scotland AME Zion Church will become central to the community's story in 1964, when, as the media called her, a young Jewish housewife named Joyce Siegel heard about the community from her daughter in kindergarten. And Joyce is with us here today. She is the co-chair. She's 90 years old, and she's an activist. As a result of Jim Crow laws and blatant racism, the community of Scotland was in ruins. Decent jobs were scarce. the community government refused to supply running water, sewer, or trash services to the community, even though the encroaching white neighborhoods next door had all those modern amenities. Worse still, the government was claiming Scotland's land, now considered very desirable, and they were claiming it under eminent domain. To be blunt, the government wanted Scotland and its residents, Black folks, to be gone. But Joyce Siegel wouldn't hear of it. She organized a meeting in February, the first of hundreds. That meeting didn't give her or Scotland much hope. But then something magical happened. After Bloody Sunday in March of 1965, Dr. Martin Luther King sent out a telegram to faith leaders across America. "Come to Alabama and march with me," he asked. 25 faith leaders right here in the Washington metropolitan area chartered a plane to answer the call. Threatened by state troopers, guns, and bully clubs, these pastors, priests, and rabbis marched towards Selma, and we know the story. And they wrote American history in the progress. When they came home, they were fired up. And you know who was waiting? Yes, Joyce Siegel was waiting to take up the battle to save Scotland. My friend Joyce Siegel, with the assistance from Dr. King and his eager followers, did indeed save Scotland. As you know, Joyce is here today, still fighting and still waving the flag. But Joyce's story didn't end there. In 2019, the Scotland AME Zion Church flooded, as Frank just mentioned, and catastrophically because the state government had filled in the wetlands next to the building and paved a 2-lane road about 30 feet from the church's front door. The road was, in fact, acting as a dam. For the next 2 years, Scotland had virtually no hope of saving its sacred place of worship. Once again, Scotland needed saving. And once again, Scotland turned to Joyce Siegel. "How did you do it?" they asked. Utilizing the game plan she taught them, the Second Century Project team started reaching out to political leaders like my husband, Ike Leggett, like my friend Andrew Friesman, who's here today and you recognized him earlier. They reached out to faith leaders like my friend Reverend Casey, who you heard this morning give the prayer. Others they reached out to, politicians. They went to synagogues, they went to mosques, and they went to the media. And to really change a narrative, they organized the Scotland Juneteenth Heritage Festival, a long weekend celebration of music, art, history, and so much more. It wasn't quite the march on Selma or Washington, but for a little Black community that time had forgotten, that had been reduced from 500 acres to 10 acres, by only 10 acres, from 500 to 10 acres, by urban squall, corporate greed, and government neglect, the Second Century Project has put a little Black community and that tiny church back on the map in a way that I nor anyone would ever forget it again. There is, however, still work to be done. To date, as you heard from Frank, the Second Century Project has raised nearly $6 million of a projected $10 million goal to flood-proof that church and to restore it so that it is again a community service center, a place of worship, and a place that we all can be proud of to reserve the history, reserve Black history. and all the good that happens when people of all nations, all colors, of all communities, all races work together. With us today, as you see in front of me, are several of the Century Project teams from Scotland. Chairman Chuck Williams, Church Trustee Al Hurd, Church Elders Bernard Scott and Ken Cummings, the congregants April Scott, I'm so sorry. Letitia Gasway Paul, who was the founder of the June 10th Heritage Festival. And I don't want to miss anyone. Did I mention all of you? Anyone did I miss? And I want to call out Paul Tukey. Paul is the project leader, and I want us all to give us them. Come on, Paul, you need to be back. Thank you. This was incredible work. It is representative of the vision of Martin Luther King. As we work diligently, we want you to know that that little church in Potomac, Maryland still exists and waves the flag for a Black community that was almost lost. Think about how you can help us move the work forward. Thank you for this award. Thank you for recognizing us, and please be a part of the fight. Thank you.
No, we did. Well, let's do it quickly, please. No, right there. We gotta move it. Right here. Okay. Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Frank.